The altar at St. Catherine's Cathedral was a cascade of white roses and ivory tulle, a breathtaking vision that had cost me 6 months of sleepless nights and approximately 47 spreadsheets worth of obsessive planning. I, Serafina Blackwood, the youngest partner at Blackwood and Associates, one of the most prestigious law firms in the city, stood at the end of the aisle in my Vera Wong rehearsal gown, a delicate creation of silk and lace that had made my mother cry when she first saw it. My fiancé, Marcus Sterling, was supposed to be waiting for me at the altar. My best friend since childhood, Lily, was supposed to be beside me, holding my bouquet and whispering reassurances. Instead, Marcus was holding Lily's hand, and Lily was wearing a gown that was a near-perfect replica of my wedding dress, white and flowing and obscenely expensive. I had seen the sketches. I had approved the fabric. I had paid the deposit, and now she was standing at the altar, her face radiant with a joy that felt like a slap. The priest looked confused. The guests, a carefully curated collection of the city's elite, were murmuring. The string quartet had stopped mid-note. The air was thick with the scent of roses and betrayal. Marcus turned to face the congregation. His voice rang out, clear and rehearsed, the voice of a man who had been planning this moment for a very long time. I have something to say. Something I should have said a long time ago. He paused for dramatic effect. The cameras from the society pages were recording everything. I am not marrying Serafina. I am marrying Lily. I've been in love with Lily for 2 years. Serafina was never anything more than a convenience, a stepping stone, a woman with a trust fund and a law degree who could open doors for me. But Lily is my soulmate. She understands me. She sees me, and she is the one I want to spend the rest of my life with. Lily stepped forward. Her smile was demure, but her eyes were glittering with triumph. I'm so sorry, Sarah, she said, her voice dripping with false sympathy. I never meant to hurt you. It just happened. Love doesn't follow rules, you know? Marcus and I were meant to be together. You'll find someone else. Someone who actually loves you. The congregation erupted. My mother screamed. My father was trying to reach Marcus, held back by security. The photographer was snapping pictures, eager to capture the scandal. I stood at the end of the aisle, frozen, my hands shaking, my heart hammering against my ribs. I remembered everything. The way Marcus had proposed to me on a private beach in the Maldives, his eyes full of tears he'd rehearsed in the mirror. The way Lily had hugged me afterward, her voice choked with what I thought was joy for me. The way they'd both been so supportive of my career, so encouraging of my long hours at the firm, so happy for my success. IT had all been a lie. A carefully constructed performance designed to extract every ounce of value from my life and leave me with nothing but the shell of my existence. Marcus walked down the aisle, still holding Lily's hand. He stopped in front of me. I'm sorry it had to be this way, he said, his voice low and smug. But you were never really my type. Too ambitious. Too focused on your career. Lily is different. She's soft. She's gentle. She knows how to support a man. You could learn something from her. I looked at them. The man I had loved for 4 years. The woman I had trusted since I was 6 years old. They were standing there in my church, in front of my family, laughing at me. I wanted to scream. I wanted to claw their eyes out. But I was a lawyer. I knew the power of evidence. I knew the value of patience. And I knew, with a certainty that burned like ice, that they had made a catastrophic mistake. I didn't cry, I didn't beg, I didn't make a scene. I simply looked at Marcus and said, you're right, I was never your type, but you were never my partner. You were my project. And projects can be dismantled. Piece by piece, brick by brick. Do you learn that soon enough? I turned and walked out of the cathedral. The cameras followed me. The guests parted like the Red Sea. I walked to my car, a sleek black Mercedes that I'd bought with my own money, and I drove away. I didn't look back. I didn't need to. I had a plan. The following weeks were a blur of media coverage. The tabloids called it the wedding scandal of the century. My face was plastered everywhere, usually next to a picture of Marcus and Lily looking smug in matching designer outfits. They'd moved into my penthouse, the one I decorated, the one I bought with a bonus from my first major case. They were wearing my clothes, sleeping in my bed, living my life. The audacity was breathtaking. I retreated to my office at Blackwood and Associates. The firm was my sanctuary. The walls were lined with law books. The view from the window was of the Manhattan skyline, a sprawling testament to the power of ambition. I had built my career from nothing. My father had been a small-town attorney, my mother a schoolteacher. I had earned every accolade, every promotion, every dollar. Marcus had come into my life when I was already on the rise. He'd convinced me he was a venture capitalist with a promising portfolio. He'd convinced me to invest in his startups. He'd convinced me to co-sign his loans. He'd convinced me to sign over a percentage of my shares in the firm as collateral for a joint venture. I had been an idiot, a love-blind, trust-stupid idiot. But I was also a lawyer, and lawyers keep receipts. I started with the paperwork. Every contract Marcus had ever had me sign, every loan he'd taken out in my name, every transfer of funds from my personal accounts to his business accounts. I pulled everything. I spent long nights in the office, surrounded by stacks of documents, my eyes burning from staring at spreadsheets. My assistant, a sharp young woman named Priya, worked alongside me without complaint. "Boss, this guy was a walking red flag," Priya said one night, holding up a contract that had been signed under duress. "He took you for a ride. A very expensive, very elaborate ride." "He did," I said. "But he made one mistake. He underestimated me. He thought I was just the girlfriend with the trust fund. He didn't realize I was the lawyer who wrote half the partnership agreements for the biggest firms in the city. He didn't realize that I had access to information he couldn't even dream of." I pulled out a file folder. Inside were documents I'd obtained through my network of contacts in the financial industry, evidence that Marcus's venture capital firm was a shell company, that his investors were actually fronts for money laundering, that his startups were bankruptcies waiting to happen. He'd been running a con on everyone, not just me, and I had the receipts. I also found evidence of Lily's involvement. She wasn't just the innocent best friend who'd fallen in love with the wrong man. She was Marcus's partner in crime. She'd been feeding him information about my clients, my cases, my vulnerabilities. She'd been the inside woman, the spy in my camp, the one who had made all of this possible. The memories came flooding back. Lily had introduced me to Marcus at a charity event 3 years ago. She'd said he was a self-made man, a rising star in the venture capital world. I'd been skeptical at first, but she'd vouched for him. She'd called him a catch. She'd pushed me to go on that first date. She'd been the architect of my destruction, not just its beneficiary. I also remembered the small things. The way Lily had always been just a little too interested in my finances. The way she'd asked too many questions about my family's estate. The way she'd accidentally left her phone at my apartment after Marcus had visited. The way she'd always been there, in the background, watching. I started my counterattack quietly. I filed a lawsuit against Marcus for fraud, embezzlement, and breach of fiduciary duty. I filed a separate lawsuit against Lily for conspiracy and theft of trade secrets. The legal papers were served simultaneously at 9 a.m. on a Monday morning while they were having brunch at a trendy restaurant I'd once taken them to. I paid the waiter to take pictures. The look on Marcus's face when the process server arrived was priceless. The media went wild. The narrative shifted. Suddenly, I wasn't the pitiful, jilted fiancé. I was the vengeful lawyer who was dismantling her ex's empire. The tabloids called me the Black Widow. I hated the nickname, but I loved the fear it inspired. Marcus and Lily were fighting a defensive war, and they were losing. Marcus called me a dozen times. I let every call go to voicemail. He left messages, his voice alternating between pleading and threatening. "Serafina, you're destroying my reputation. You're ruining my life. Please, let's talk. We can work something out, and I'll give you the money, and I'll give you anything. Just stop this insanity." I listened to every message. I saved them. I forwarded them to my lawyer. Marcus made a strategic error. He tried to cut a deal with my firm. He offered to settle the lawsuit in exchange for the return of his personal assets, which were, in fact, my assets. He thought he could buy me off. He thought he could charm the partners at Blackwood and Associates the way he charmed me, but the partners were loyal to me and I had made them millions. I had saved their clients from ruin. They weren't going to betray me for a two-bit con artist. The lawsuit was a masterpiece of legal destruction. I'd hired a team of forensic accountants who traced every dollar Marcus had ever stolen. I'd hired a private investigator who uncovered his hidden bank accounts in the Cayman Islands. I'd hired a cybersecurity expert who proved that Lily had been accessing my personal files for years. The evidence was overwhelming. Marcus was facing criminal charges. He was facing civil penalties. He was facing bankruptcy. And I was just getting started. The moment of truth came at the final hearing. Marcus was in the defendant's chair. His expensive suit was rumpled. His eyes were hollow. He looked like a man who had lost everything. Lily was beside him, but she was pale and silent. Her engagement ring, the one Marcus had bought with my money, was still on her finger, but it seemed to weigh her down. I walked into the courtroom in my power suit, heels that clicked like gunshots, a silk blouse that screamed, "I own this room." I was there to deliver the final blow. I was there to watch the destruction of the man who had tried to destroy me. The judge ruled in my favor. Marcus was ordered to pay $14 million in restitution. He was ordered to return every asset he'd stolen. He was ordered to cease any contact with me or my firm. Lily was ordered to pay $2 million in damages for theft of trade secrets. Their joint accounts were frozen. Their assets were seized. They were left with nothing. Marcus broke down in the courtroom. He fell to his knees, right there on the polished wooden floor, and he cried like a child. "Serafina," he sobbed, "please, that I'm begging you, that I made a mistake. I was a fool. I didn't know what I was doing, Lily. She manipulated me. She told me you didn't love me. She convinced me you were just using me for my connections. I was so stupid. I believed her. I'm so sorry. Please, give me another chance, one more chance, and I'll spend the rest of my life making it up to you." I looked at him, the man who had stood at the altar and humiliated me in front of the world, the man who had laughed at my pain, the man who had stolen my life's work. I felt nothing, and oh pity, and oh sadness. No anger, just a cold, clear emptiness. "The only thing you ever gave me," I said, "was the motivation to become the person I needed to be. You thought you could break me. You thought you could use me and discard me. But you were wrong. I am not the victim of your story. I am the author of my own story. And in my story, you are nothing but a footnote, a cautionary tale, a lesson I learned and moved on from." I turned and walked out of the courtroom. The cameras were waiting outside. The journalists were shouting questions. I didn't answer them. I just walked to my car, got in, and drove away. The sun was setting over the Manhattan skyline, and the sky was on fire with oranges and pinks. I felt lighter than I had in years. The weight of the betrayal, the humiliation, the anger, it was all gone. That I had won, that I had survived, and I was free. A year later, I was in a new office, bigger, brighter, the top floor of the Blackwood Tower, and I had been promoted to managing partner of the firm. I was the youngest managing partner in the history of Blackwood and Associates. The cover of Forbes featured my face with the headline, "The Lawyer Who Took Down the Con Man." My story was an inspiration to women everywhere. I received letters from strangers, women who had been through similar situations, thanking me for my courage. Marcus was in prison. He'd been sentenced to 8 years for fraud and embezzlement. Lily had fled the country, but Interpol was on her trail. Her reputation was ruined. She would never work in the fashion industry again. She would never hold a position of trust again. She would live the rest of her life as a fugitive, running from a past that would never let her go. I had moved on. I had a new apartment, a new life, a new sense of purpose. I didn't need a man to complete me. I didn't need validation from anyone. I was complete on my own, and I had my career. I had my friends, and I had my future. The world was a vast, beautiful place, and I was ready to conquer it. I stood on the balcony of my new office, looking out over the city. I remembered the night of the wedding rehearsal, the roses, the tulle, the faces of the guests. I remembered the look on Marcus's face when he told me I was nothing. I remembered the cold, empty feeling of standing alone in that cathedral. But I wasn't alone anymore. I had myself, and that was enough. That was more than enough. It was everything.